All right, guys. Time to talk about these Gators again. Not in a positive light, obviously. Another loss, five straight. Not the season we all wanted, not how we wanted it to end. I think a lot of us were really hoping just to get a win against Florida State and get bowl eligible. Although I am completely satisfied with this season being over, I am so glad this team is not playing another game. They didn't deserve to go to a bowl game, and I could not stand or stomach watching another Florida football game with the product on the field, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. Just glad to be over, and it's talking season again for us early. And hopefully, we can have some positive off-season news with some staff changes, some portal pickups, and land a top 5 class, and add some names that were not expected, which I believe will be the case. There might be a few flips that we're not going to like, but hopefully, we'll be able to replace those guys and at least hang on to a top 5 class. It's going to be mandated that this class is top 5 in order to um, ascend or improve on the season that we've had the last 2 years. This roster's got to be turned over and upgraded, and even those guys aren't going to make a big difference next year. There might be a handful that you will see be difference makers. I totally believe that. Um, Personally, I'd rather see Lagway be our guy next year and start than Mertz, but I think Mertz is going to come back possibly unless hits the portal and gets a bigger offer somewhere. Today's day, you just never know with this game the way it is. But as of right now, Mertz probably comes back. Definitely helps us out of the quarterback position with him and Lagway there. That way if he does get hurt, we're not putting in a Max Brown who was just totally out of place, just not an SEC level or even a D1 level quarterback at this point in his career. Kid's got some legs. He wasn't utilized very well intentionally in the run game like he should have been. Dropping back to pass too much. He's not a great thrower of the football. Baseball player, so he's got a strong arm. He threw some darts. His problem is we are terrible with our passing game, our scheme, routes we run. We don't get guys open. Our offensive line's porous. He doesn't have time. He held onto the ball too long, probably because guys were not open most of the time. Um, but a lot of times because of the inexperience, he doesn't know how to read a defense, doesn't know how to look off a safety, or trick people with his eyes. So he locks onto his first read. 9 of 16 for 86 yards and interception is terrible. You know, at home, had his team behind him. I felt like he should have given us a better performance, but a lot of that's on Billy, in my opinion. Missouri didn't have a lot of tape on the kid, so of course he looked better in that game, but he didn't throw a lot in that game either. And now we know why. You know, barely over 50% throwing the ball, didn't even hit 100 yards passing. And Rodemaker was terrible, and still had better stats than Brown. At our stadium. So Rodemaker 12 of 25 for 134 yards, and most of that was on a couple passes, just explosive plays that this defense has given up all year at the worst times, giving up third downs when we should have got the field. Um, but that's just part of this defense. Southern Miss had the same defense when Coach Ham was there. I still like Coach Ham. Still think we should keep him as the defensive coordinator. I do believe in this defense. There's a lot of other issues that are causing the problems. It's not necessarily the scheme all the time. Coach Ham is a super energetic young guy with passion, and this team needs that. This program needs that. We don't have enough coaches like that on the staff. So he brings that fire, and we just need that. We're not, right now, Florida doesn't have that, even from the top of their program with Billy. He's just not a passionate guy. You watch his pressers, he sounds like Chat GPT wrote his responses when a reporter asks a question about the game or his evaluations week to week. He always says we're going to evaluate everything we do as a program. Then when he's asked what is the evaluation process or how do you evaluate, he couldn't answer the question. He couldn't get any more specific than that because he probably got his answer from Chat GPT, like I said. So, a bunch of coach speak, cliches every press conference. Um, Us against the world and the fans all the time mentality. I'm sick of it. Everybody's tired of hearing that. I'm sorry. Put some respect on us fans. I mean, we are the ones that keep this program going. We're the ones paying the bills. Um, NIL, all that stuff doesn't happen without big boosters who graduated and are now fans of this program, and even all the way down to just low on the totem pole, nobody fans like myself. You know, tuning in to watch a game, going to the game, buying tickets. Part of the reason Florida was successful in the first half of that game was because it was in the swamp, because of the fans, not even the team. It's because of how loud it was. 3 delay of game penalties because of us, not because of anything Florida was doing. It's the 12th man. I mean, it is literally like an extra player on the field playing at home in the swamp. It's a difference maker, and it rattled Florida State. Rodemaker was rattled almost that entire game. He couldn't hear. I mean, we were screwing them up. It was like a repeat of the Tennessee game. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. That game was only 24-15 because it was at the swamp. If it had been a neutral site game, I think Florida State wins by another touchdown, maybe 2. It's not even as close as it was if it was neutral site or in Tallahassee. It's bad for Florida. We affected the outcome of that game as fans in that stadium, how loud it was. And he was rattled. Like I said, their whole team was rattled. What did make me sick was hearing the war chant the entire game. They must have had a huge FSU crowd there in that stadium because they were drowning out a lot of the noise at times, and it was really just a little disappointing. I don't know how they got that many tickets or filled the stadium up, but they were loud. They showed up and supported their team, and it's sickening to hear that in the swamp. But let's move on. So Johnson had a heck of a game. Montreal, 18 carries, 107 yards and a touchdown, and he was playing hurt. I don't know if y'all saw, he was gimpy. ETN was hurt and still had a solid game. The difference for them was Benson, 19 carries for 95 yards and 3 touchdowns. The kid's just, he's as good as our backs for sure. The kid's a stud, and again, Norvell's, year 4, 3, whatever. I mean, he's been there for a while now. He's crushed it in the portal. That's the difference between Florida and FSU is Florida sucked in the portal and only hit on maybe 50% of their guys they landed, where FSU hit on almost everybody. Johnny Wilson, 6 catches for 64 yards. I thought our defense played great first half of the game and even started out okay in the third besides giving up that touchdown. Jaheim Bell, 3 catches for 38 yards. Coleman, 1 catch for 24. And then on defense, and notice the names I'm throwing out there. Verse, 6 tackles total. 2.5 sacks. Guy's a freak. NFL high draft pick. Fisk, another guy that Florida was after hard in the portal, lost out to Florida State. Florida State lands a guy that Florida really wanted in Fisk. Big-time stud defensive tackle. 1 tackle, 4 assists, and a sack. Dude, he was a disruptor up the middle all night, just destroying Florida's offensive line. They could not stop Fisk and Verse at all. Almost every play, there was pressure, get in the backfield, tackles for loss, sacks. All these guys I just named, transfer portal. The transfer portal is now a must-have. You've got to hit on it. It's a key to success in college football now. You're not going to build a program the way you used to build a program. Because look at it this way, guys. If we land a top 5 class, we're going to have that many more guys that are going to transfer that were contributors. Those offensive linemen we lost in the portal, that hurt Florida so bad this year. So you can't just address the team anymore through high school recruiting. Things are changing. The portal is super important. Billy has got to evaluate faster, offer faster, and I did see a sign that maybe that's changing. So earlier a week ago, Florida does offer a defensive lineman from UPenn. We'll see how that goes. That was a pretty quick offer. I think he was only in the portal for a day or 2 or put his name out there. Florida's already on him. So hopefully that's a sign of things to come, that more changes, will happen with the way they evaluate and jump on guys quicker. But that's been a problem for Florida. And going forward, Florida is going to have to hit in the portal every year. Several big-name guys that can contribute right away and let these young guys come along. Let them compete with these guys, and rotate in. And then the next year, maybe the high school guys are the studs on the team, and then you land more portal guys to support them guys. It's kind of, I think it would be like in every other, one year you might have studs contributing from the high school level, the next year portal guys. But every year it's going to be a factor, and it's got to get better because Florida and them, they failed. I mean, besides Mertz, there's not a single portal player besides Ricky Pearsall that I like on this team. Even Cam Jackson, who everybody was super hyped, I thought was a great pickup. Defensive lineman a lot of teams wanted. He was not great this year. He was just okay at best. To me, he was a bust. For the hype he had coming in, he was a bust. Now, some of these guys should have been better than I think they were, and there's other factors contributing to that. We're going to go over that. Um, so 4 touches for Eugene Wilson total in the game, which is terrible. 3 catches, 36 yards. ETN, 10 catches, 43 yards. 10 carries, 43 yards. He was hurt. He was out of the game after the second half. We were so banged up. That helped Florida State. That hurt Florida a lot. I will admit that. Florida was super banged up coming into the game. And that's another question mark for this program. A lot of injuries this year. Really, really banged up. Just barely had a team to field by the end of the Florida State game. That tells me there's some things that need to be evaluated in our recovery, strength and conditioning. But Wilson, 1 catch for a yard. What are we doing? That's our best playmaker, and he barely got the ball. Brown, minus 5 yards rushing. I'm sorry, but that right there, that's bad. Guy that can run, utilize his legs better than that. That's how bad this offensive line is. Florida's got to address the line. It has to be addressed. I think it's got to be addressed through the portal because these young guys are not going to be ready to play. There's nothing on this roster that gives me any hope for next year. No Mazzell, no Andy Jean all year. I don't. That's a head scratcher for me. There's got to be an explanation, something off the field. It can't be their talent because those guys could have contributed and were better than some of the stuff we were putting on the field. Not that those guys were terrible, but just one of the two should have been playing alongside, Eugene Wilson all year. Defensively, I thought Marshall had one of his better games. Had a sack, 3 tackles, 1 assisted. A DB, one of the top tacklers on the team in your game. That's not good. That's always a bad sign. It should be a linebacker. Wingo did have a good game, one of his best games as a Gator. I thought he's gotten better as of late. I have seen improvement from him, so that's a good sign for development. 2 tackles, 3 assists, and a half sack. Wingo's a solid guy, but again, these are guys that really shouldn't be even starting on Florida's defense. Bryce Thornton, I love the young guys. That's why I said 2007, Florida had a defense like this. Terrible in statistical categories. A lot of young guys. The next year they come back, they were elite. I don't necessarily buy that that's going to happen, but I do think this defense is going to be a whole lot better next year. Thornton had 2 tackles, 2 assists. I thought he played a really good game, and he's improving as well. So we'll see what the future brings, but I think there is some positives on this team, especially the youth. Florida will get better. It's just, can they develop them? Can the strength and conditioning get better? The score realistically, Smack's been money all year besides that 1 kick at Arkansas. He does seem to fold under pressure a little bit. Maybe this was the kicker they saw in practice, and that's why Mihalik was the starter for so long. Still a great year for him. 2 for 4 in this game, but on the year he was solid. The score realistically should have been 24-21. And if we hit those other 2 field goals, this is a different game at the end. It's a lot closer with Florida having a chance to win it. So, Florida should have won this game, in my opinion. There's 3 games that should have went our way. We should have had 7 to 8 wins. I know a lot of people hate the should word, and I'm one of them included. I'm just saying the potential was there, and it could have, and Florida, was in position to do it and failed. Trick plays, can't stand them. They've never worked with Billy. Every trick play he's tried has been looks disjointed. The timing's awful. He just totally kills momentum for us in games. This coach and this team does not know how to capitalize on momentum. His play calling gets super conservative when we get a lead. He plays scared, doesn't take chances. Where were the deep ball in this game? I heard another show this morning. Throw 3 deep balls. We'll get pass interference all day. Want to talk about the penalties. The ejection thing, that's tough. I hate that rule in football. You're making a tackle at full speed, and the guy slides at the last second. It's a bang-bang play. You cannot stop your momentum. I hate that rule. They need to change it. They got to figure something out. They didn't lead with the crown of their helmet. And the penalties in the first half, we did get a call that helped us get a touchdown. But man, they sure did return the favor to Florida State. I think it was like something like 10 penalties in the second half, all for Florida State. Most of them were just bogus bull crap calls. They seemed to all go their way with that crew that they had. I mean, the officiating was just awful in this game. Probably gives Florida State a touchdown just based off of penalties. Um, that really hurt Florida. Discipline's an issue with this program. I don't want to hear about how meticulous and detail oriented and the discipline approach and the culture. I mean, spitting in someone's face. Are you kidding me right now? Some of the fighting, Eugene Wilson slapping a coach's arm off of him. I mean, I know there was a lot of emotion, but these guys just like, I feel like they're losing the players' respect at times, and these players just make some of the worst decisions on the field. Um, and I know the team's frustrated. You could see it in this game. So I think there's a lot of that. I don't want to totally put the blame on them because the coaches are the ones that are supposed to implement discipline. And I know injuries hurt us as well, but man, you just can't do that kind of stuff on the field. You can't spit in a guy's face. And that guy was playing a heck of a game. Jamari Lyons has had a good season. He was disruptive last night, and he just really hurt his team. Plain and simple. That's got to improve. We can't see stuff like that next year. The schedule's only going to get harder. I was going over it this morning. There's one cupcake game, Samford. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the same Samford that scored like 50-something points on Florida and we almost lost to with Emory Jones. I might be wrong, but I think that's the same team. Or it might be that was Sanford. I'm not sure. Offensive line, wow. I mean, just like a wet paper towel. Florida State rushed 4 and got home all night long. When you can do that in football, you're going to win a lot of games. You got no chance on offense when they can rush 4 and drop everybody back. Of course, there's not going to be anybody open. There's no windows there. We put 7 out there sometimes and still couldn't block their 4. That's how bad it was. With Mertz in this game, I did want to say I feel like we win this game with Mertz in a close one. I think we win it, something like 27-24. I think would have been the final score. I did pick Florida to win this game. The swamp, like I said, is the only thing that really kept it close. But I think Mertz would have been the difference. Now, again, they could say the same thing if they have Travis. They probably score more points on us. It's probably not as close as it is, and I would agree with that. The kid's a baller. Now, if Mertz and Travis both play, is it a different game? Sure, but I still think Florida State probably would have won in the end. And it probably would have been a blowout if it hadn't been in Florida. Talked about this before, but I'm sorry, Hawk has got to go. Strength and conditioning. We look weak. We get trucked at times. We look slow trying to, when guys get around the corner on us, they're gone for 10, 15 yards. I mean, we just cannot seal the edges. And when guys get on the outside, we have nobody with any speed on this team that can hawk them down. I've watched so many times. As soon as I see a team run to the outside on our defense, I already know it's gone. It's 10 yards automatically, first down. Because there's no one fast enough at the linebacker spot or DB. They're unphysical, undisciplined. They don't want to tackle. They shy away from contact. Kimber's the worst tackler in the history of football that I've ever seen. It's a wonder he got benched. It's no wonder he did get benched. Devin Moore is glass, gets hurt again. I mean, that kid's never going to stay healthy at Florida. He's unbelievable talent. I mean, that's one of the reasons our DBs played so well in this game. But for him, he just can't stay on the field. When we can't trust him and rely on him next year, I would love for him to start day one and see how it goes. But we got to have somebody behind him that's just as good, if not better, because I don't think he's going to be available ever for more than a game for Florida. He's just been hurt ever since he got here. Billy, press conference, like I said, you can tell by his demeanor, he is not on the hot seat. He does not feel the pressure. If he doesn't make it, now next year he is. When the season starts, he's going to be on the hot seat. He loses in year 3 and doesn't, get more than 7 wins, he's fired. If he's gone, Strickland's gone. Strickland will not get another chance at Florida to hire another coach. I totally believe that. Strickland is definitely done. His hires have been terrible. I love Goldie. I love Florida's basketball team. Talk about them later, but 4-2, top 25 team in my opinion. They're going to make the tournament. I love that team. Love the fight. There's so much NBA talent. It's not even funny. Golden's going to be a good one. Brown, again, if he stays, I think it'd be great for depth. could use the guy. He's probably a great scout quarterback, practice guy. But again, not SEC level, probably not even Division One. He probably should have stayed committed to Central Michigan and McElwain. But again, never going to be a starter at Florida as long as we've got other guys in the fold. So we've been over it before, guys, but this off season's key. I mean, we all know it. There's got to be changes. I hope. I haven't heard much yet. It's going to be quiet for a few days. Let them evaluate things, but the pressure's got to be there on him to at least make changes. Offensive coordinator, special teams, strength and conditioning, all that needs to be looked at. Drop one of the offensive line coaches, put an on-field special teams coach out there. Personally, I think both special team coaches should be gone. In my opinion, this offensive line has been terrible. They can't recruit. So we'll see what happens. December 5th, portal opens up. Coaching changes will hopefully be made in the next couple of weeks as the bowl games get going. Hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. Go Gators.